The blue sun of Zellikar Prime cast long shadows across the royal palace as Queen Valara stared at the communication screen with disbelief. Her antennae trembled as she processed the impossible message. She had mourned Kate for 3 cycles. Kate Morrison had been her human-made ambassador to Earth and the love of her elongated life. When the reports came in that the human vessel carrying Kate had been destroyed in the conflict with the Drenari, Kate was presumed dead, along with the entire crew yet. Here was a transmission bearing her mate. Code Queen Valara dismissed her royal attendants with a flick of her upper appendage. The 7-foot-tall insectoid ruler of the most powerful empire in the Andromeda cluster needed privacy. Her carapace gleamed with the traditional mourning pigments she had worn since the terrible news. With trembling claws, she activated the message. A hologram flickered to life. The face that appeared made her compound eyes widen. Kate. The human woman looked different. Her once short brown hair now reached her shoulders. A scar ran along her left cheek. But those eyes, Valara would recognize those determined green eyes anywhere. Kate spoke, her voice slightly distorted by the vast distance the transmission had traveled. Queen Valara, I hope this message finds you well. It's me, I'm alive. The reports of my death were incorrect. Our ship was attacked, but several of us escaped in emergency pods. I crashed on a planet the Drenari use as a mining colony. The hologram flickered. Kate leaned closer to the recording device. I've discovered something, the Drenari. They aren't what they seem. The war. They started with Earth, the conflict that pulled your empire in. It's all based on a lie. I'm sending coordinates. I need extraction. But, more importantly, I need you to see what I've found. The truth changes everything, Val. Please come yourself. Trust no one. The message ended. Valara stood motionless, her exoskeleton creaking slightly as she processed the information. Her Kate was alive, and in danger, and apparently had found something significant enough to risk sending a transmission that could be intercepted. The Queen of the Zellikari Empire had not risen to power by being impulsive, but neither had she maintained her rule by ignoring her instincts. She pressed a communication note on her desk. Commander. Prepare my personal shuttle, she ordered. We leave for the coordinates I am sending within the hour. No royal guards, Commander. This mission requires discretion. The commander began to protest, as was his duty, but Valara cut the communication. She began removing her royal adornments, replacing them with the more practical armor of a Zellikari scout. If Kate was alive, if she had truly found something that could change the course of the war, then Valara would not send others. She would go herself. As Valara prepared for departure, she reflected on how she had first met Kate Morrison 5 cycles ago. The human had arrived as part of the first diplomatic mission from Earth. Valara had been impressed by her directness, a quality rare among the subtle and often deceptive diplomats she usually dealt with. Kate had not bowed or shown fear despite Valara's imposing appearance. Instead, she had looked directly at the Zellikari Queen with curiosity and respect. And when Valara had spoken through her translator, Kate had listened, truly listened. Their relationship had developed slowly. First professional respect, then friendship, then something more. When Valara had finally extended a courtship offer in the tradition of her people, Kate had surprised everyone by accepting. The first human Zellikari pair bond had caused quite a stir in both civilizations. Their 3 cycles together had been the happiest of Valara's long life. Despite the biological differences, despite the cultural misunderstandings, they had found harmony until the Drenari attacked Earth. The reptilian Drenari collective had always been isolationist, but their sudden aggression against human colonies had shocked the galactic community. Earth had called upon their Zellikari allies for assistance, and Valara had committed her forces to the conflict. Kate had insisted on joining a diplomatic mission to attempt negotiations. Her ship never returned. Valara had received the news stoically as befitted a queen, but in private she had keened with grief a sound no Zellikari had made in her presence. Now hope fluttered in her thorax, a feeling so foreign after cycles of mourning that it almost hurt. Her shuttle was small but fast, designed for royal inspections, not combat, the perfect vessel for a covert mission. Its stealth capabilities would allow her to approach the mining planet without detection. As she boarded, Valara noticed a message alert on her personal communication device. It was from Chellis, her chief advisor and oldest friend, my queen. I have discovered disturbing information regarding the Drenari conflict. Please consult with me before any action. Valara hesitated. Her trust in Chellis was absolute. But Kate's warning echoed in her mind. Trust no one. With a decisive click of her mandibles, Valara deleted the message without reading further. She would apologize to Chellis upon her return, if return she did. The shuttle lifted off silently, slipping past the orbital defense platforms and Royal Guard vessels without alerting them. Valara set the coordinates Kate had sent and engaged the faster-than-light drive. The stars stretched into lines of light as the ship accelerated, alone in the shuttle. Valara allowed herself to remember Kate. The human was so physically different from her own kind. Soft where Zelakari were hard, warm where they were cool, small where they were tall. Yet Kate's spirit, her determination and intelligence, had matched Valara's own if Kate was truly alive. Valara shook her head, forcing herself to consider the possibility that this was a trap. The Drenari were known to be skilled at deception. Could they have somehow obtained Kate's codes, created a false message to lure the Zelakari queen away from her protected palace? But the eyes in that hologram. No technology could replicate the exact way Kate looked at her. The journey would take 20 rotations. Valara programmed the ship to alert her when they approached the target system. Then she entered the hibernation chamber, a necessity for long solo journeys. As the chamber filled with suspension gas, Valara's last thoughts were of Kate, and of what truth could be so important that it was worth risking everything to reveal. 20 solar rotations later, Valara's stealth shuttle approached the mining planet. The atmosphere was thick with industrial pollution, a perfect cover for her approach. She landed in a remote canyon several miles from the coordinates Kate had sent. The gravity was heavier than she was accustomed to, but Valara had trained for various planetary conditions. Her powerful legs carried her swiftly across the rocky terrain, her natural camouflage abilities shifting her exoskeleton to match the reddish hues of the landscape. Night fell quickly on this world. The 3 moons provided enough light for her compound eyes to navigate without technology that might be detected. As she approached the coordinates, she noticed signs of habitation. A small structure, built into the side of a cliff, cleverly disguised to look like a natural formation. Only someone specifically looking for it would notice the subtle differences. Valara approached cautiously, her antennae extended, testing the air for pheromones or signs of traps. Nothing registered except the faint scent of human. She clicked a specific pattern with her mandibles, a code only Kate would recognize. The hidden door slid open. Kate stood there, a projectile weapon aimed steadily. Recognition dawned. In the human's eyes, the weapon lowered. Val, she whispered, her voice breaking. You actually came. Valara stepped inside the shelter, fighting the urge to embrace her presumed dead mate. Protocol, first security, then reunion. You sent coordinates requesting extraction. Kate Morrison, I would have crossed galaxies. Valara said, her translator converting her clicks and hisses into human English. Kate secured the door, then turned to face the towering insectoid queen. The human was much smaller, standing only to Valara's mid-thorax, but her presence had always seemed larger than her physical form. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then both moved simultaneously. Kate wrapped her arms as far around Valara's carapace as they would reach, while Valara gently encircled the fragile human with her upper limbs. I thought you were dead, Valara said, her voice modulator conveying the emotion. Her insectoid features could not. I nearly was, Kate replied. I spent months healing, then months more, gathering intelligence. Living among the miners, I discovered something in the deep tunnels, something the Drenari don't want anyone to know. Kate pulled away from the embrace and gestured for Valara to follow her deeper into the shelter. The space was small by Zelakari standards, forcing Valara to duck her head and fold her secondary limbs close to her body. But it was clean and organized in the way Kate had always kept their shared quarters. The walls were covered with maps, diagrams, and what appeared to be scientific formulas. Samples of rock and soil sat on makeshift shelves labeled in Kate's neat handwriting. A communication array cobbled together from salvaged parts hummed quietly in the corner. "What happened to your ship?" Kate asked. Kate's face clouded. "How did you travel?" "Here I came alone," Valara replied. "In my personal shuttle." Kate's eyes widened. "No guards? No escort trust?" "No one. You said in your message." Kate nodded grimly. "Smart, but dangerous." She picked up a handheld scanner and ran it over Valara's form. The device beeped, softly as it worked. Checking for tracking devices, she explained. "The Drenari have technology that can be embedded without the host's knowledge." Valara remained still, allowing Kate to complete her scan. The fact that Kate was taking such precautions only confirmed the seriousness of the situation. "Clean," Kate announced, finally setting the scanner aside. "You weren't followed either. I have perimeter sensors. They would have detected any other ships." "Now, Kate Morrison," Valara said, "I require an explanation. How did you survive the attack on your vessel? Why did you not contact me sooner? And what is this truth you claim to have discovered?" Kate sighed heavily and sat on a small stool. Her shoulders slumped with obvious exhaustion. "Our ship was attacked, just as the report said," she began. "But it wasn't completely destroyed. Several of us made it to escape pods. Mine was damaged in the chaos. I crashed here. On this mining planet," Kate gestured to a crude map on the wall. "The Drenari found my pod. They assumed I was dead. I woke up in a pile of bodies. They were disposing of the dead from the mining operation." She swallowed hard. "The conditions here are brutal, Val. The miners, many are prisoners of war. Others are species the Drenari consider inferior." Valara clicked her mandibles in disgust. The Drenari collective had always claimed to be a peaceful civilization, interested only in trade and scientific advancement. This treatment of other beings violated numerous galactic treaties. I pretended to be another prisoner, Kate continued. "Another worker. They don't pay much attention to us as long as we meet quotas." I kept my head down, learned their routines, gained their trust, while planning my escape. "How did you discover I was alive?" Valara asked. "I didn't not. At first," Kate admitted, "I was focused on survival, then on finding a way off planet. But the deeper mines, the restricted areas, I started hearing rumors about something valuable. Something the overseers called Project Genesis." Kate stood and moved to a locked container in the corner. She pressed her thumb to a scanner and the box hissed open. Inside, nestled in protective foam, was a glowing blue crystal the size of Kate's palm. "This is what they're mining," she said, lifting the crystal carefully. "It's not on any known element chart. It has properties I can't fully explain, but the Drenari, they understand it." The crystal pulsed with an inner light, casting blue shadows across Kate's face. Valara felt her antennae tingle in response to some energy. The crystal was emitting. "What is it?" Valara asked, resisting the urge to touch the strange object. "The miners call it soulstone," Kate said. "The Drenari scientists call it compound X7. But that's not important. What matters is what they plan to do with it." Kate returned the crystal to its container and locked it. Then she activated a small holographic projector. Images of Drenari laboratories appeared, complex machines, tanks filled with swirling liquids, and more of the blue crystals being processed. I managed to access their secure network. Kate explained. "I was communication specialist for Earth. Remember, the Drenari are planning something called the Purification. They believe they're genetically superior to all other species in the galaxy." The hologram shifted, showing what appeared to be simulations of the crystal being weaponized. "They've engineered the crystal to target specific genetic markers, specifically human markers." And Valara. She looked up at the Queen with worried eyes. "Zelikari markers, as well." Valara stepped back, her exoskeleton creaking in alarm. "Why would they target our species specifically?" she asked. Kate changed the hologram again. This time it showed genetic sequences. "Look familiar?" she asked. Valara studied the spinning DNA strands, her scientific training allowing her to recognize the patterns. "These are common to both Zelikari and human genomes," she said with surprise. Though our physical forms are vastly different, exactly. Kate nodded. The Drenari discovered what your scientists, and ours, missed. There is a genetic link between our species, not obvious but present. We share 20% of our base genetic structure, despite evolving on planets light years apart. Valara processed this information, her mind racing with implications. Only explanation, Kate continued, is that somewhere in our distant past our species were influenced by the same source. Possibly even engineered. The theory of ancient cedars. Valara said softly, an old Zelikari myth that all intelligent life was spread across the galaxy by a precursor civilization. Not a myth, Kate said. Not according to the Drenari records. The Drenari believe they are the pure descendants of these ancients, and that humans and Zelikari are failed experiments, mutations that need to be eliminated. Valara felt a cold sensation spread through her body. The scale of such hatred was difficult to comprehend, and this crystal can accomplish such genocide, she asked. According to their research, Kate confirmed, yes. When properly processed and deployed, it can target those specific shared genetic markers. The result, the Drenari call it genetic dissolution. We would call it death on a scale never before seen. Kate led Valara to a makeshift laboratory setup at the back of the shelter. Various rock samples and data pads were scattered across the surfaces. This is why the Drenari attacked Earth. Kate explained, picking up a glowing blue crystal. This mineral, we call it blue shock on Earth. It powers our newest technology. The Drenari need it for something much worse. Kate activated a series of holographic displays. The Drenari aren't just mining this stuff, Val. They're weaponizing it. She pointed to complex molecular structures. The crystal doesn't just store energy. It can be programmed at the quantum level to target specific genetic markers. Valara clicked in alarm, her antennae standing straight up. They plan to eliminate humans entirely. Kate continued, and after that, the Zelikari would be next. Your species shares a surprising number of base genetic markers with humans. Despite the obvious physical differences, Valara examined the data, her scientifically trained mind quickly grasping the implications. So, the peace negotiations were never genuine, she said. Never. Kate confirmed. They needed time to perfect the weapon. I have the evidence, the research files, everything. But we need to get this to both Earth and your people. The Drenari fleet is moving. I overheard communications. They plan to deploy within 15 rotations. Valara processed this information. Her empire was powerful but not invincible, especially against a targeted genetic weapon, and Earth's forces, while technologically advanced, were still recovering from the initial Drenari attacks. We must return to my shuttle, Kate Morrison. The data must reach my scientists and your Earth Alliance. As they prepared to leave the shelter, alarms suddenly blared. Kate rushed to a monitoring station. Drenari patrol, she hissed. They're sweeping the area. They must have detected your landing. How many? Valara asked, slipping into battle stance. Too many for a direct confrontation. Kate replied, and if they capture us, the information dies with us. She grabbed a small data crystal. But I have a plan. The alarm continued to pulse, red light washing over them as Kate explained her idea. The mining operation maintained regular shipments of processed ore to Drenari command centers, if they could reach the loading docks undetected. They might be able to stow away on an outbound transport. It was risky, but potentially their only option, now that Valorous shuttle had been compromised. But first we need to move, Kate said quickly, gathering essential supplies. The patrol will be here within minutes. She pressed a hidden panel in the wall, revealing a narrow tunnel emergency exit. She explained, ducking into the passage. I never stay anywhere. Without one, Valara followed her exoskeleton, scraping against the rough stone walls. The tunnel was barely large enough for her. The darkness was no impediment to her compound eyes, but the confined space triggered ancient instincts, warning of danger. They emerged in a narrow ravine half a mile from the shelter. Just in time to hear the whine of Drenari hover vehicles approaching in the distance, Kate pulled a small device from her pack and pressed a sequence of buttons. What are you doing? Valara asked. Insurance, she replied grimly. The shelter is rigged with explosives. Nothing that will harm the patrol, but enough to destroy my research if I can't have it. Neither can they. A dull thump echoed across the landscape. Smoke rose from the direction of the hidden shelter. "Let's move," Kate said, already heading deeper, into the ravine. "We need to reach the northern processing facility before the next shift change." They traveled in silence for over an hour, Kate setting a grueling pace, despite her smaller size and seemingly fragile human physiology. Valara was again reminded of why this particular human had captured her attention. Her determination was remarkable. The ravine eventually opened onto a vast industrial complex. Massive machinery extracted ore from deep pits. Processing plants belched toxic smoke. Into the already polluted atmosphere, Drenari guards patrolled the perimeter. While workers of various species labored under harsh conditions, Kate pointed to a large building near the center of the complex. "That's the processing center," she whispered. "All the refined crystal passes through there before being loaded for transport. We need to get inside, find a shipment heading to Central Command, and stow away." "How do you suggest we accomplish this?" Valara asked. "The facility is heavily guarded," Kate smiled, pulling 2 items from her pack. "Worker identification bands and face coverings. I wasn't always hiding in that shelter," she explained. "During work shifts. I'm supervisor, Lena Process Control Division, with proper authorization to inspect outgoing shipments." She handed 1 band to Valara. "And you're my new assistant." "A Kraltak from the outer colonies." Valara examined the identification band. "Your plan requires me to pass as another species." Kate nodded. "The Kraltak are also insectoid, though smaller. They wear environmental suits on this planet, due to the atmospheric composition. No one looks too closely at the workers here, especially supervisors' assistants." It was a desperate plan, but Valara had not survived 3 assassination attempts by being risk-averse. She secured the band around her upper appendage and allowed Kate to drape a voluminous covering over her carapace. "How will we pass the genetic scanners?" she asked. "We won't," Kate said. "Supervisors use the service entrance. No scanners, just a code which changes daily." She tapped her temple. "Luckily, I have an excellent memory." They approached the facility from the southern side, moving with purpose. Kate walked with the confident stride of someone with authority. Valara hunched her, form attempting to appear smaller. Less regal, a bored-looking Drenari guard barely glanced at them as Kate entered a code on a service panel. The door slid open and they slipped inside. The interior of the processing center was a hive of activity. Conveyor belts transported raw crystal to refinement chambers. Workers sorted and classified the material under the watchful eyes of Drenari overseers. The air hummed with energy from the crystals themselves, making Valara's antennae tingle uncomfortably. Kate led them through the facility with the confidence of someone who belonged. Her human appearance drew no special attention. The Drenari used many species as labor. "Keep your head down," Kate murmured. "And try to walk less like you're about to conquer." The place Valara adjusted her posture, attempting to mimic the subservient shuffle of the workers they passed. They reached a large sorting area where processed crystals were being packed into containment units. Each unit was marked with a destination. Kate pretended to inspect the units, checking labels against a datapad she had produced from her pocket. Valara stood behind her, attempting to look unremarkable. "There," Kate whispered, nodding toward a large container, Central Command, high priority. She glanced at her datapad. "Departs in 20 minutes." The container was nearly full. Workers were sealing the final compartments, under the watchful eye of a Drenari supervisor. "We need a distraction," Valara said. Kate nodded, scanning the room, her eyes finally settling on a control panel near the main power distribution node. "Wait here," she said. "Then be ready to move." Kate crossed to the panel and began entering commands, her fingers flying over the interface. With a final tap, she stepped back just as alarms began to blare. Warning: energy fluctuation detected. A computerized voice announced, "All personnel evacuate refinement section 3. Containment failure imminent." The effect was immediate. Workers abandoned their stations, rushing toward emergency exits. The Drenari supervisor barked orders, attempting to maintain order in the chaos. Now Kate mouthed to Valara, gesturing toward the container. They moved quickly, Valara reaching the container first. She created an opening with her powerful claws, just large enough for them to slip inside. Kate followed, pulling the section closed behind them. They nestled among the carefully packed crystal containers, the blue glow providing eerie illumination in their hiding place that won't hold them off for long, Kate whispered. The system will detect there's no actual containment breach. How long before we depart? Valara asked. Minutes. Hopefully, Kate replied. If the container isn't rerouted for inspection. They waited in tense silence. The sounds of the facility, gradually returning to normal operation. Outside their hiding place, they could hear workers being ordered back to their stations. Then came the sound they had been waiting for, the mechanical whir of loading equipment. The container shuddered as it was lifted. Destination Central Command Priority Clearance Alpha, a mechanical voice announced. The movement continued for several minutes. Then the distinctive hum of an engine powering up. We're on a transport ship, Kate said, relief evident in her voice. Next stop, Drenari Central Command. Valara allowed herself to relax slightly. They had escaped the immediate danger, but they were now heading directly into the heart of enemy territory. A thought occurred to her. Kate Morrison, she said softly. Did you know my shuttle would be detected? Did you plan for us to take this route all along? Kate looked away, her expression difficult to read in the blue crystal light. I calculated the possibility, she admitted. Your shuttle has advanced stealth technology, but the Drenari have been improving their detection systems. I had multiple extraction plans. This was always the most likely. Valara studied her mate. Your tactical thinking has improved since our last meeting. 3 years in hostile territory will do that, Kate replied with a small smile. Then more seriously, Val, if we make it through this, if we stop their plan, we need to talk about us, about the future. Valara gently touched the human's face with one delicate appendage. When I believed you dead, Kate Morrison. I realized something. I have lived for 300 cycles. I have ruled for 100. I have known many beings, but none have affected me. As you have, Kate smiled, leaning into the transport ship docked with a final shudder. Kate and Valara remained motionless in their hiding place within the cargo container. The blue glow of the crystals surrounding them cast eerie shadows as they waited. Through the hull they could hear the muffled sounds of the Drenari docking procedures, mechanical whirs, hydraulic hisses, and the guttural language of the reptilian species. We need to be ready, Kate whispered. When they unload this container, we'll have a small window to slip out. Valara nodded, her antennae twitching as she monitored the sounds outside their hiding place. The vibrations through the container told her that unloading procedures had begun. What is our objective once we escape this container? She asked, keeping her voice low. Kate pulled a small device from her pocket and activated it. A holographic map appeared, showing the layout of a massive facility. Drenari Central Command, she explained. This is where they coordinate all military operations, including the deployment of the weapon. She pointed to a section of the map labeled Research Division Alpha. That's our target. The main laboratory where they're processing the weaponized version of the crystal. According to the communications, I've intercepted the lead scientist. Dr. Krell is scheduled to present the final phase to the Drenari High Command today. And what do you propose we do when we reach this laboratory? Valara asked. Kate pulled another device from her pack. This one smaller with a blinking red light. This is a quantum disruptor, she said. It will destroy their research and render the processed crystals inert. But it needs to be placed at the core of their processing system. A suicide mission, Valara observed. Kate met her gaze. Not necessarily. The disruptor has a delay function. We plant it access their central database for proof to take back to our governments and escape during the confusion. It was a bold plan. Perhaps too bold, but they had come too far to retreat now. The container lurched as it was, lifted from the transport. The movement lasted only minutes before they felt the container settled onto a solid surface. The seals hissed as pressure equalized. Get ready, Kate whispered. The container doors opened. Drenari voices barked orders as workers began unloading. The blue crystals were handled with extreme care, each placement precisely catalogued, Kate signaled to Valara, then slipped out between two workers as they turned away. Valara followed her movements, fluid and silent. Despite her larger size, the Zelikari Queen's natural camouflage abilities shifted to match the metallic surroundings. They moved quickly through the shadows of the massive loading dock, Kate leading them toward a service corridor. According to her stolen map, this would lead them toward the research division. The corridor was narrow and dimly lit, perfect for their purposes. Few Drenari used these service passages, preferring the grand halls that reflected their sense of superiority. The species they subjugated maintained these hidden arteries of the facility. They encountered only two workers, both quickly avoided by ducking into maintenance alcoves. Valara noted how smoothly Kate moved, how confidently she navigated the enemy facility. It spoke of long preparation. "You have studied this place well," Valara observed as they paused at a junction. Kate nodded. "For months," she admitted. "While gathering intelligence on the weapon, I managed to access their central database. Downloaded everything I could. I studied it all during those long nights in the shelter." Her dedication was impressive, even by Zelikari standards where single-minded focus was a cultural trait. They continued through the labyrinthine passages, gradually making their way deeper into the facility. The architecture became more clinical. Research laboratories replaced storage areas. Security increased accordingly at a heavily secured door. Kate hesitated. "Beyond this point is the high-security zone," she explained. "Only authorized personnel and Central Command members can access it." Valara examined the security panel, retinal scanner, DNA verification, and code entry. This would be difficult to bypass without setting off alarms. "I cannot alter my genetic signature," she said, "and your credentials will not match any in their system." Kate smiled, pulling a small vial from her pocket. "Not my credentials," she said. "The credentials of Dr. Liz Krell, lead researcher." Valara clicked her mandibles in surprise. "How did you obtain genetic material from such a high-ranking Drenari?" "I told you," Kate replied. "I wasn't always hiding in that shelter. A few cycles ago, during the early research phase, Dr. Krell visited the mining operation for inspection. I was assigned to her personal quarters. Cleaning detail." Kate applied the contents of the vial to her hand and pressed it against the genetic scanner. Then she leaned forward, allowing the retinal scanner to examine her eye. Finally, she entered a code sequence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the security panel glowed green. The door slid open. "Impressive," Valara said. Kate shrugged. "I had a good teacher. Your security chief Morzek always said the best way past a security system is with proper credentials." They moved quickly through the now open door into a pristine, white corridor. The difference between this section and the rest of the facility was striking. Gleaming surfaces, soft lighting, and an almost clinical atmosphere. Unlike the busy loading docks, this area was eerily quiet. They encountered no one as they followed the corridor deeper into the research division. According to the map, the main laboratory should be ahead, Kate whispered, consulting her device. They reached a set of double doors, marked with Drenari symbols, main processing laboratory. Kate translated, "This is it." Before they could develop a plan for entry, the doors suddenly slid open. A Drenari scientist emerged, datapad in hand. He stopped short at the sight of them, his scaled features registering shock. Before he could react, Valara moved with the blinding speed her species was known for. Her upper limbs grabbed the scientist, dragging him back through the doors. Kate followed quickly, the doors closing behind them. The laboratory was massive and thankfully empty, save for the struggling scientist. Multiple processing stations surrounded a central chamber, where a large quantity of the blue crystal pulsed with energy. Machines hummed as they refined and altered the crystal structure. Valara held the struggling scientist. Securely, she could have killed him easily, but that was not their way. "Who are you?" he demanded in heavily accented common speech. "How did you get in here?" Kate approached him, holding up her scanning device. "Dr. Salrin, isn't it?" she said calmly. "Third level. Research Associate, Project Genesis." The Draenaris eyes widened in fear. "How do you know this?" Kate ignored his question. "Where is everyone else?" she asked. "The laboratory should be fully staffed." The scientists struggled, weakened. The presentation, he gasped. "All senior staff are at the high command briefing. Dr. Krell is demonstrating the final phase." When Valara asked, his eyes darted to a chronometer on the wall. 20 minutes ago, he said. "The deployment authorization will follow immediately." Kate and Valara exchanged alarmed looks. "The timeline has accelerated." Kate said, "We need to move quickly." She turned to the scientist. "Where is the central processing core?" The Drenari remained silent. Valara applied slight pressure to his thorax, not enough to injure, but sufficient to make breathing difficult. The scientist gasped and pointed to the central chamber, where the crystals pulsed with increasing intensity. Kate moved quickly toward the chamber, studying the control panels that surrounded it. "This is more advanced than I expected," she muttered. Her fingers flying over the interface, "They're further along in the process than my intelligence suggested." "Can you disable it?" Valara asked, still restraining the scientist. Kate shook her head. "Not disable, but she pulled out the quantum disruptor. The plan remains the same. We place this at the core." She worked quickly, bypassing security protocols, accessing the central chamber. Valara watched with growing concern. The pulse of the crystals had increased, their blue glow intensifying. "I need to access their research database," Kate said. "Download the proof before we destroy it. Otherwise, no one will believe what they were planning." She moved to a main console and began the download process. The scientist laughed, suddenly a harsh sound that made Valara's antennae twitch. "You are too late, human," he said. "You cannot stop the process. The crystals have already been encoded with the genetic markers. The weapon is ready." Valara tightened her grip slightly. "You lie," she said. "This chamber is still processing the crystals." He smiled, showing sharp teeth. "The central processor is merely the final stage. The encoding happens elsewhere. This is merely preparation for deployment." Kate looked up from the console. Her face pale. "Right, Val," she said. "The data shows the markers are already encoded. Their target list." She swallowed hard. "Earth, Zellikar Prime, all major human and Zellikari colonies. Billions of lives." "How soon?" Valara demanded. The scientist laughed again. "The presentation to High Command is a formality. The deployment vessels are already loaded, waiting only for authorization, which was given 15 minutes ago." Valara felt cold fear, a sensation she had rarely experienced in her long life. She looked to Kate, who continued, working frantically at the console. "Can the disruptor still work?" she asked. Kate nodded. "But we need to expand the field cover more than just this facility." She looked up at Valara. Something in her expression had changed. Determination had replaced fear. "Val," she said softly. "We can still stop this, but I need to modify the disruptor. Connect it directly to the central power grid. It will create a cascading reaction throughout their network, affecting all encoded crystals." The scientist stopped laughing. "What? No, that would." Kate silenced him with a look. "That would also destroy this entire facility," Valara said, realizing the implication. "And us with it." Kate followed Valara's gaze to the shuttle bay, a sample transport, she said, understanding immediately. The Drenari use them to send crystal samples to their secondary research facilities. Valara nodded. "We cannot escape, but perhaps the evidence can." They moved quickly, Valara still restraining the scientist. Kate gathered the data crystal containing the downloaded research files and rushed to a control panel near the viewport. "The bay contains 3 shuttles," Kate reported, examining the panel. "1 is prepped for launch, standard automated flight protocols. Can you override the destination?" Valara asked. Kate worked at the panel, her fingers dancing across the interface. This was her expertise, after all. Communications and transport systems. "Yes," she said after a moment. "I can set new coordinates." She looked up at Valara. "But where?" "Send it to the Zellikari outpost in the Farron system." Valara decided it's closest to this location and has a direct quantum link to our homeworld. Kate programmed the coordinates, then hesitated. "Val," she said softly, This data, this evidence, the Drenari won't stop. With this facility destroyed, they'll only be delayed. They will try again. Valara understood. The evidence alone would not be enough. The leaders of both their worlds needed to understand the true nature of the threat. The personal testimony of a queen and a human ambassador would carry far more weight than data alone. "What are you suggesting?" she asked. Kate glanced at the central chamber where the disruptor continued its countdown. Then at the small shuttles in the bay. "I have an idea," she said. Working rapidly, she began reprogramming one of the shuttles. Its cargo hold would be large enough for both of them, though barely. The scientist in Valara's grasp had gone still, listening to their exchange. His eyes widened as he realized what they were planning. "You can't escape," he said. "The security systems. The automated defenses." Kate smiled grimly. "We don't need to escape the facility," she said. "We just need to escape the blast radius." She finished the programming and turned to Valara. "The plan. The disruptor will trigger in 8 minutes. The shuttle can launch in 2. That gives us a 6-minute head start. If we can clear the gravitational well of the station before detonation, the shockwave might just push us clear instead of vaporizing us." It was desperate. Valara knew the odds of survival were minimal, but minimal was better than none. "What about the evidence?" Valara asked. Kate held up the data. "Crystal, we take it with us," she said. "If we survive, it goes with us. If not..." She glanced at the second shuttle. Already programmed with the same coordinates as a backup, Valara inclined her head, impressed again by her mate's thoroughness. "And what of him?" she asked, nodding to the scientist. Kate considered the Drenari for a moment. "Bring him," she decided. "We may need a hostage, and his testimony would be valuable." They moved quickly to the shuttle bay. Kate used Dr. Krall's stolen credentials to bypass the security lockdown. Valara carried the now subdued scientist. The shuttle was small, designed for automated sample transport, a tight fit for 2 beings and their unwilling companion. But it would serve their purpose. Kate settled at the controls while Valara secured the scientist. A quick check showed the launch sequence was ready. 6 minutes to detonation, Kate announced. She activated the launch sequence. The small craft hummed to life. Clamps released as the bay doors began to open. An alarm suddenly blared through the facility. "Security breach, level 1 alert." A computerized voice announced, "All personnel to emergency stations. Unauthorized launch detected in research bay." 7. Kate cursed, punching commands into the console. "They detected us faster than I expected," she said. Valara moved to the small viewport. The bay doors were opening, but slower now, manually overridden by security protocols. Beyond, she could see defense turrets activating. "They will fire upon launch," she observed. Kate nodded grimly. "We'll just have to be faster," she said. Her hand hovered over the launch control. 5 minutes to detonation. The scientist laughed from his restraints. "You will die here," he said. "Both of you. Your species will follow." Kate looked at Valara, their eyes meeting. Across the small cabin, in that moment, a silent communication passed between them, the understanding that had always existed despite their biological differences. "Now," Kate said, and pressed the launch control. The shuttle shot forward, accelerating rapidly toward the still opening bay doors. For a terrible moment, Valara thought they would crash, but Kate's piloting skills were precise. The shuttle cleared the doors with bare inches to spare. Immediately, the defense turrets opened fire. Energy blasts sizzled. Past the viewport, Kate executed evasive maneuvers, pulling the shuttle into a steep climb. Away from the facility, toward open space. 4 minutes. Kate called out over the roar of the engines. A blast struck the shuttle's rear section. The craft shuddered. Alarms blared. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. Engine damage 30%. Kate reported, her voice steady. Despite the danger, power rerouting. Valara moved to the co-pilot seat. Her knowledge of spacecraft was limited, but she could assist. The scientist had gone silent, watching with wide eyes as they fought for survival. 3 minutes to detonation. The shuttle continued its desperate climb, away from the massive Drenari facility that now grew smaller below them. Defense turrets continued to track them, but their range was limited as the distance increased. Engine damage 60%. Kate announced. We need more speed. Valara examined the control panel, noting a system labeled Emergency Thrust. This, she asked, pointing to the control. Kate glanced at it and nodded. A single-use emergency accelerator, she confirmed. It might burn out the engines entirely, but we will not need the engines once we clear the blast radius. Valara finished for her. 2 minutes to detonation. Kate nodded and activated the emergency thrust. The shuttle lurched forward with sudden acceleration, the force pressing them back into their seats. The engines screamed in protest. Warning, engine failure imminent. The shuttle's computer announced ignore. Kate told the computer, continue emergency thrust. The stars outside the viewport stretched as their speed increased. The Drenari facility now just a small shape below them. The planet itself becoming visible in its entirety. 1 minute. Kate said, her voice tight. With tension, engine failure in 15 seconds, the computer warned. Kate looked at the distance calculator. Almost, she murmured. Almost there. Valara reached out one appendage, resting it gently on Kate's arm. Kate Morrison, she said softly. Whatever happens, know that my feelings for you have never wavered. Even in death, I would have carried you in my heart. Kate turned her head briefly, her eyes meeting Valorous, and you, Val, she whispered. The engines failed with a final shudder. The shuttle continued on, its trajectory momentum carrying them away from the planet. Below them, the Drenari facility was barely visible now. 30 seconds, Kate counted down. They had escaped the immediate blast radius. But the question remained, would it be far enough? The quantum disruptor had been modified for maximum effect. Its destructive potential was theoretical. 20 seconds, Kate secured the data crystal in a protective case, then reached for Valaris' appendage. Their different biologies meeting in a gesture of connection. 10 seconds. The scientist closed his eyes. 5, 4, 3, 2. The viewport suddenly filled with blinding blue light. A massive energy wave erupted from the planet below. The disruptor had triggered. The wave expanded outward at incredible speed. Brace, Kate yelled. The shockwave hit them with tremendous force. The shuttle tumbled end over end, systems failing, alarms blaring. The hull creaked under the strain. Metal tore, emergency bulkheads slammed into place. For Valara, time seemed to slow. The blue energy of the wave passed through the shuttle, through her body, a strange tingling sensation. Unlike anything she had experienced, it did not harm, but it changed something at a fundamental level. The shuttle continued its tumble. Eventually, the violent motion subsided, leaving them floating in space. Emergency systems provided minimal life support. The viewport showed only stars. The Drenari facility, the planet itself, all gone, replaced by a slowly expanding cloud of blue-tinged particles. Did it? Kate whispered, her voice filled with awe and horror at what they had witnessed. An entire Drenari command center destroyed. The weapon production facilities gone. But at what cost? Valara wondered. Warning, life support. Failing, the computer announced. Oxygen levels critical. Kate checked the systems. Engines dead, communication array damaged, she reported. But the emergency beacon is functional. She activated the beacon. Its signal would reach nearby systems, perhaps even the Zelikari outpost in the Farron system. But rescue would take time. Time they might not have. The data crystal, Kate said, holding up the case containing their evidence. At least this survived, the proof of what the Drenari planned. The shared genetic link between our species. The attempted genocide. Valara nodded. The mission was a success. Then, despite the desperate situation, the scientist laughed weakly from his restraints. Drawing their attention. You think you've won? He said, his voice raspy in the thinning air. This was just one facility. One weapon. The Drenari collective spans dozens of systems. We will rebuild. We will continue. Kate moved toward him, her expression hardening. You won't have the chance, she said. When our governments see this evidence, when they understand the true nature of your plans, they will unite against you. The Drenari smiled, showing sharp teeth. This has always been the way of things, he said. The strong survive. The weak perish. We are the true inheritors of the ancients. You are the mistakes, Valara felt rage building within her. A rare emotion for a Zelikari queen control was valued above all in her culture. But this Drenari, this arrogance, this belief in genetic superiority, it could,